Hey there, CNC operators. Coach Mike Murphy back with All Star CNC products. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the benefits of onboard gasket. Onboard gasket is a real quick and easy way of holding stuff. Over the years, customers have talked to us about the difficulty they have in holding rough cut slabs because of how much variance there is in the material. And just to demonstrate, we're going to turn on our vacuum. Turn on our zone 1 here. So the vacuum's on. But just because of how much variance is in this material, very difficult to get that vacuum to hold in place. But since you've invested in a vacuum system, let's utilize it, right? A lot of customers over the years have talked about using screws or pins or double-sided tapes to hold these things. Your vacuum is on the table, let's utilize it. So what we're using here is we're going to use some of our grommet frames that we have as an onboard gasket, adhesive backed on one side. And we're going to use our 1/8 inch low density material. We're just going to put some of these gasket frames right onto the product. The reason we're doing a couple of them is because there's some inconsistency in this wood, maybe some holes in there. We don't want to compromise our vacuum chamber area. So to have now 2 complete zones that we're going to extract the air from. Boy, now that part's not moving. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flatten that. We're going to utilize our 2.5 inch fly cutter to flatten out this side to make it a little bit easier to work with, to hold on to, and then we'll do the other side. So let's get this loaded up, get this into the collet, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now that we got our 2.5 inch fly cutter into the collet, we'll press play, get our dust boot on there. Great, and we're off and running. I did that in multiple passes because of how much variance is in that wood, so we're cutting down by about 40 thousandths of an inch on 3 different passes, and we'll get that super smooth. But while that's doing that, talk a little bit about onboard gasket. As we saw, we did our 1/8 inch material on the bottom because of how varied it is. But we always say the thinner the better, because the thinner the gasket is, the less variance you're going to get in your gasket. So the 1/8 inch on really warped material like that, our 1/16 here cut at a 3/8, probably our most common for our wood customers, and we can even go down to a 1/32. This one's to a 1/4 inch, very common amongst our plastics and acrylics customers because of how flat the material is. So a lot of different products, a lot of different thicknesses. We got some of them demoed here. That is our onboard gasket and how quick it is to get that onto the material, onto the spoil board. So now that this fly cutter is going, like I say, we're going to get this flattened out. We're going to get this smooth, and we're going to flip that over, get the other side nice and smooth, and then we'll get to work on the bowl that we're going to make out of that material. Okay, so that's our last pass. We finished fly cutting here on our material, so let's turn off our vacuum. And boom, nice and smooth. I didn't cut down to the edge because there's so much variance here. I don't want to lose this 1/4 inch worth of material on our work surface area. So now what we're going to do, we can easily peel off our onboard gasket material, or we could even fly cut it off if need be. And what we can do is now we're going to start to use the gasket, the onboard gasket, right onto the spoil board so we don't gum up the surface of our material. So now that we got that gasket off, I'm just going to trace my part, just a ballpark idea of where this is going to lay out. And I'll use some of our onboard gasket. This time we're going to use the 1/16 just because the material is much flatter this time around on the bottom side. And all we're doing with gasket is define the space that we're going to extract the air from to allow our vacuum clamp to hold on. So with this 1/16th, ballpark idea of where we're going to lay this out. And there we have it. We've got our vacuum chamber area. Turn that vacuum back on. Boy, and there we have it. Part's not moving. We're going to fly cut this again to get the second side smooth, and we'll have our workpiece to cut our bowl out of. Okay, so now we got the material affixed down to that spoil board with that gasket, vacuum clamped in place. We're going to do the other side here and do the fly cutting on the second side, and we'll be off and running. And I'll do the same thing as last time. I'm going to do it in 3 passes. We're doing about 40 thousandths of an inch each time to account for all that variance that's going to happen in the material. Both some of the irregularities in the material and then also from the sawmill cuts. So once that's smooth, it's going to be much easier to work with. So now that we fly cut both sides of this, we got it super smooth. We're going to try to hold on to it so we can make our bowl. Our vacuum is engaged, and you can tell, I mean, we're still having a tough time holding on to this thing. What we're going to do is we're going to use some gasket, but there's a lot of variance in here. There's a lot of cracks, there's a lot of knots, so the vacuum is going to pass through there. So what we're going to do is we outlined our path and used some of our tooling, some of our grommet frames that we used before, to place them in a spot where we know there's not going to be any cracks. Boy, and there we have it. We have it held in place. And we can press play on our profile. We're going to go through it a few times, but we're going to be off and running. So this is going to give us the profile piece that we're going to be able to cut our pocketed bowl into. Do it a few slow times again because it's such of a variance of that rough cut mill material, kind of like over here, very inconsistent. We want it flat, we want it gasketed, and now we're holding it in place. Okay, now we're complete. We can, let's turn off this vacuum. And there's our football. We'll be able to use the same gasket to now do our profile or our pocketing to make the bowl. We can put it right back into the same spot. Let me load that program. We're going to change over to I believe a 3/8 ball nose bit to get that rounded aspect at the bottom of the football, but yeah, we'll do that next, and we're almost there. So now that we're all smoothed out, we got it profile cut. What we're going to do now is do some pocket cutting. Changed out the tool to a 1/4 inch bit, flat bottom, so we're just going to do that, get the depth of that bowl in place, and we'll come back after that. And there we have it. Just completed cutting the pockets into our bowl. We used our ball nose bit to round off these edges. Great job. Challenges in holding on to this stuff, just because one of the things I want to show you guys, when we look at this in the daylight, you can see the daylight coming through there. And if the daylight's coming through, you know that air loss is coming through there. So it's difficult to hold on to this if we're trying to use one vacuum pocket. That's why we utilize the two different areas to create the two different pockets to hold on to this, so we can't get leak. Leak is the enemy. So now we've got that clamp onto that piece. We can cut the product quickly and efficiently, and it's not going to move on us. So anyone that's cutting slabs, rough cut lumber, anything with varied surfaces, the onboard gasket, great way to do it. We can do it in different thicknesses, different widths, different densities, depending on a lot of different variables that each shop has. But onboard gasket, great way to do a quick and easy way to hold on to those slabs, varied materials. And stay tuned, we're going to be doing more parts, more videos to share with you guys. If you have any ideas that you want to share with us, comment down below, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon.